Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GANs processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
Mr. Keshe did mention, though, that in what we played today, which was from the reactor group, that if Iran takes over the teaching, that the fees will be closed. So that means there will not be any more fees from the student, and hopefully you can take your fee and send it as a donation to the foundation, if I've understood that correctly, that the fees will be closed, if that's the word Mr. Keshe used. So at the end of this year, everyone can be a knowledge seeker just to join.
Ask Mr. Keshe, he's here.
Well, he hears. If he wants to open his mic, he will.
Just ask him.
Good evening. The fees will be borne by the Keshe Foundation for the university. So it becomes donation. And if you cannot do it by September, it'll be done by January of next year. It's part of the program which we are working on and will inform as it goes. We still got about a month left before we start.
I think the private classes start sometime in the last third of September, if I understand correctly. I'm not sure of the date, though.
We will release the information as it becomes available, as we can agree with the officials in the university. We will release data and information.
And you certainly do have a lot to release.
It's an old say, it says you have not seen nothing yet. This is just the beginning.
Mr. Keshe, last teaching you brought the beautiful picture of Naomi. How is she?
I was with her about 5-6 weeks ago. Good. And we are going through what they call, because I left Italy. Now we're going back to the last phase of bringing whatever is left to complete and to repair. She's normal. She's normal as we can get her, but there is one thing left apparently, which wasn't completed. So we start a new program on her sometimes in the coming soon to literally clean up the last bit. You most probably see her in public in a very short time, if she decides to be in public.
That's a beautiful news. Thank you.
Welcome. There was a couple of things in teaching you were asking for, which we, in the, what we said in the inauguration of the Iranian president. These are the pictures which are now in circulation, as you can see. That's the inauguration of the Iranian president in the parliament. By law, he has to address the parliament, which is the nation. And you see him in the first steps before he takes the seats of presidency. And this is the Iranian National Parliament. Then you see the representative of the Vatican on the front row in the far right. And this is what we told you last time. This is one of the biggest humiliations for the Vatican ever had to face. And it's cleared up in different ways.
I've been reading there's been waves or new waves of this problem in Iran continuing. I thought we sort of turned the corner on it, or will that come with the new administration?
Politically, we have a lot to sort out, but this needs diplomacy outside to solve the problem inside. And this is the next phase of what is to come. We are not politicians. We don't take part in politics, but there are a lot of things that need to be addressed, and very short time, the first 3 to 6 months, it will be addressed by the present government. The last 2 governments in Iran, they have sold, as we say, not only the shirt, they have sold the underwear as well to the Americans. And this is why we got into this position.
They sold the nation down the river, as they say.
They had no, what we call reality to the nation. They had a reality to their bank accounts. This is a problem we see with all the world leaders. They come in to do something in the first weeks of their position. They see so much money come into their accounts by different ways that they come in to literally line their pockets. And this is what it's become. All the recent past presidents and prime ministers, not only in Iran but outside, are billionaires. It's a shortcut to becoming a billionaire, to become a head of a nation, especially a nation with like oil in Iran or United States or United Kingdom or France. They come in as a little bit, but they go out as billionaires.
What a sideline.
No, that becomes the main line.
Excuse me.
That's, but it has to be sorted one way or another. And go back to the history of China in the past 10 years since President Xi has taken off. President Xi, before President Xi, bribery and corruption and putting people out of their homes and building new apartments and selling it for millions and billions to the government and others was very common. And everything was in black and white. How you have to pay, what you have to pay. Bribery was before the nation. President Xi went for this class of people with the security forces and with the army. People who took the village and put all the village out more or less on the street, and they built the city and they sold the city for billions. And villages couldn't do anything because they were head of the army or head of the city or mayor. We saw in the first year of the presidency of President Xi, some 10,000 these type of people were executed. And the judges and law enforcement went heavy on them. After 2 or 3 years, they found out the police and judges who were convicting these people, now they're taking the caches themselves. So they went for them by creating elite forces. And then they found out the elite forces were actually collecting the cream on top of the cream. And so they went for them. Now we have some sort of a very elite, no attachment or trying to keep it detached from the finances, and they're going for the head of the head of the head, as I call it. And in that process, we saw some 60, 70,000 people being executed, or the same number as in long-term prisons, lifetime prisons. And then they brought a $500,000 line. If you took a bribe or made less than $500,000, you got a life sentence. Above it was execution. But he hasn't solved the problem. The process was very clear last year when, or actually the year before, when China, as I've said before, signed an agreement with a number of countries where those who stole the biggest and escaped, suddenly hundreds of top richest people in China the day, week before they get arrested, they escaped out of China into Europe and other places. President Xi signed a contract with these countries on a one-by-one road. You want the support of China, we want to sign an agreement that we want these people back to China to see where the money is, how they did all that. But they give a guarantee that they'll not be executed, they get the life sentence if they get convicted. When they brought the first 10, 20, they start questioning them. How did you know the days or weeks before we arrest you? Especially in Beijing, which was the richest of the richest. Then they found out the vice mayor of Beijing, the lady, was informing these people and taking a lot of the money they stole. So whatever they stole, she collected for the information was giving them, and they jumped the country. And when they found her up about 2 years ago, they went to her house. They needed literally trucks and several money counting machine and gold she took from the thieves of the thieves of the thieves. And she got executed within days of finding out. And it was literally a national treasure they found in her palace, the vice mayoress of the Beijing. And we see the corruption goes all the way up, even in military, even in the army, even in more or less head of states. We cannot stop this. It's been a disease with these people who call themselves leaders, presidents, and the kings for centuries. And the clearest one is now. We have the same problem sitting in administration in Iran. We have the same thing in the United States. President Trump came in as a bankrupt billionaire. He went out as a real billionaire. And then we see the same. The British Prime Minister counting has 18 billion pound mastered in a private accounts during the time of his prime ministership. Because his wife was a lawyer, she diversified all the bribes into a special account, and now we see him, he's always kept in the ambassador level, one thing to another, not to be arrested international for a number of big frauds. I can't stop. No one has found the solution to this yet.
Yes, it seems
Even
like.
so.
Go ahead, please.
We even saw the latest last week when the head of Afghanistan was rushing out of the country, how much loot he took with him. Then he was supposed to be the most bankrupt nation in the world, the poorest nation. Forget about what they already banked in foreign banks.
Should we change the currency? Should we change the currency to get rid of that?
I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't make any difference. They all, when they come to power, they change currencies. That's the tradition.
And that's what you had told that ticket seller in the subway in London that was going to go into politics, and you said, no, they'll own you. No, they won't. No, they won't. And apparently they did. Yeah, the money is so big, and as they say in Italy, the money will make the blind see. It's very powerful.
They rely on the greed of the man. It's just that it's just how we'll change it is different thing. How much money will take to the moon and how much money can we sell to man from Mars.
You did say it would help to send these leaders around the solar system for a month or two to see that the money is really worthless, except here, I suppose, and we can deal with that later.
See, we shall see.
They only fight about money. Do you think there is nothing else?
Main is power,
And
or whatever else you want to call it. Main is what it is. There's a, as you know, we have announced this situation with the 6th of June of next year. And we have asked a number of nations to start a collaboration. What is interesting is how the governments are responding. And how advanced technologies are needed to be able to reach this. And I was in a high-ranking ministerial meeting with 2 ministers, deputy ministers this morning. And it was amazing how ignorant scientific advisor could change the mind of 2 cabinet ministers or deputy prime ministers, deputy ministers. And when a person who had the knowledge explained that it doesn't matter what your book says, we have systems which confirms what Mr. Keshe is correct, but I haven't read, there is no publication. We offered him 3 books. He said, go and read next time, advise the nation. And the next thing is, he didn't realize that the session finishing, his microphone was open. He was literally asking for a bribe on the line from his meeting. It was very, very interesting. That they didn't realize that the session was kept open by one of the ministries, and we could hear this advisor was literally after bribe. It was very interesting, very, very touching, and we listened to it when nobody said anything to him that your microphone is open, what you're talking in your ministry, we can hear.
Yes, these hot mics can get people in trouble, can't they?
Yeah, but it shows the advisors, the government rely on their advisors.
thank you.
I was explaining this to knowledge today or yesterday. They're having some knowledge seekers, and I've said this before. When I returned, it was very funny the way the things happened when I went to Iran first time. I was told that after the first payment to my family in Belgium, we cannot send any more money to Belgium from Iran. Which we didn't know how it came about. Now we sit back, we see how everything was set up. Then out of nowhere, where I was supposed to be picked up by the family, it was agreed that Dirk turns up to pick me up from Orly, Paris to Belgium. And they wanted to get into 100 and odd kilos of extra luggage, which I brought back from Iran, a lot of nuclear-based reactors we developed there and everything else. And I was told in the car traveling from Paris to Belgium that the Prime Minister of Belgium has ordered for me to attend his office within 10 days of my return, which I thought is a bit odd that what I call pattern writer to tell me that the Prime Minister of Belgium's office have contacted him to tell me to attend the meeting at the Prime Minister's office. And the strangest thing was, I was told a couple of days before you come and meet the Prime Minister's office, you go and see the Ministry of Energy. And we went to Ministry of Energy. They told us the minister has ordered that you have to speak to Suez, the biggest nuclear power company, French, because they run our energy business. We came out, we walked to the Suez, which is again part of Ministry of Energy, and they said they want to see what technology we developed in Iran. And so I told them, this is, you will never understand, you will never be disclosed. And then they reported we went down to the office of the Prime Minister of Belgium. And in that meeting, interesting enough, there was a lady who said that this technology can be accepted, cannot be accepted, and everything else. And they wanted to see the Iranian nuclear reactor, which is now in, many of you have seen it. That time was a hot potato. So I carried it in a briefcase, I opened it up, I said, it's here, but you will never understand it. And then they found out that the lady belonged to the company which is promoting 1 billion contract with the Prime Minister for a solar system and the windmills. Accepting this technology was, they won't get their cut. But the extent of the bribery in the offices, the Prime Ministers, was very opened up. It was very clear that time. And this is part of the history of the Keshe Foundation. And we came out of that meeting and there was a lot of pressures to find out what is in this reactor in Iraq, from Iraq. Then out of nowhere, Boeing and NASA wanted to see what is going on. So we attended the office of the Boeing and NASA in Brussels. And We said, if you want, we brought the reactor with us. We explained, no, you can't. Nobody has to go outside. We had to take the reactor down, you see, in the exhibitions, on the pavement outside Boeing headquarters in Brussels. On the pavement, they couldn't, it was impossible. And again, the whole caboodle behind it was how much bribe Boeing is going to take it to NASA in a different shape or form. And it's been a continuous work, the same. We see it in Keshe Foundation in every dimension and direction with the government. I was asked, and very soon the history of the Keshe Foundation will be recorded in a biography to be written. They want to do it that way. And then you read a lot of what we've seen from the world leaders and from the destruction. When I was in China, I was asked to pay $500,000 to meet somebody. When we went to Dubai, being there 3 years, I was asked by Sheikh Mohammed's right-hand man, you have to pay $5 million to get 10 minutes meeting with him. $5 million to see the second man in charge of the United Arab Emirates. These people are corrupt right the way through. Anyway, we all learn from it. I said once to a novice, how much shall I ask them for if they want to see God? That'll be nice.
Are they accepting? They will run away.
It is the way these people are. We cannot help it. We have a guy who's one of the millionaires of the United States. He is a Mormon, and he, by their path of belief or whatever, they can't take any medicine or whatever, and they wait for whatever reason to, if it's going to be a cure or whatever. This gentleman gets a cancer, and that was a time when we put Alan Sterling into prison. And through the publicity and whatever was going on in the area, the wife of this, one of the richest man in America, comes to understand that about the Keshe Foundation and about the patches and the things, and she loved her husband with 3 or 4 children, and she goes against the path of belief of whatever they did. She puts a patch under his mattress without him knowing, and a patch on top of him in the blanket. Because it was a medicine, it was just a pill. And miraculously, she understood it correctly, and she cured the cancer. But when he was cured completely of the cancer, and she did it herself without telling anyone, she told him that you're alive because of the Keshe Foundation. And this gentleman has a specific way. He's inherited a business from his father, from his grandfather. They have branches and works around the world. And he contacted me and started becoming friendly. And the end of the story was he wanted to see how he can steal the Keshe Foundation technology to launch a generator, because he understood the technology, and with his companies he wanted to build a generator. And funny enough, in past few months, we guided him, we taught him a lot. He has developed a generator which uses partially the plasma technology in his own name, but the cancer has come back. And different way, different things, and we're watching it. It was a very strange way to see how people, even what they believe in, does not come when it comes to money and their health and their wealth. And you hear him, he's a well-known figure in the United States. And he wasn't supposed to receive anything. The wife saved his life. And he came, actually he flew with his private jets and everything else, just to see how he can steal the technology.
Curiosity, were the initials MR? Perhaps.
Silence.
Thank you.
It's one of the richest moments in the United States.
So how do you envision this being handled in the future while there's still money around and things like this? How do we curtail this expansive network of
I
shakedown?
I have a vision. I have a funny way of looking at this. You know, in old prison camps, people used to exchange carrots for cigarettes or whatever, or they give something to get something. I sometimes think, knowing the nature of the human being, where we put them in a spaceship, some of them will carry these currencies, thousands of notes in their pocket. And some of them will carry the chocolates and whatever else, just smuggle it in. They'll find a way. Let's put it that way. I wonder how they will change these paper monies for these chocolates and everything like prisons, and where they're going to spend it, knowing they never come back to it, and how far they carry these things with them. And would they corrupt the universal community with this kind of behavior? this is as far as, human race will go to do things. There's something very, you referred to Naomi, how she is. We know Fabio was murdered, and we have evidence. But strange is that people nearer to us knew that this murder is going to happen. I'm going to be assassinated. We have found this in the past few weeks. And closest people to us knew exactly how and which day and when I'm going to be assassinated. And they made sure that they're not there. Italian police have the evidence, we have the evidence. And it's how things will take shape with this evidence, or who pays what bribe for it not to come out. We already received the threat. People close to me, they knew both me and my son's going to be assassinated.
I cannot
You can't
imagine
even-
your feelings, Mr. Keshe.
I've become numb to these things. You become dumb when you go through a number of them, and then you see connections, one after another, how they've been connected. My son and I, we said this on video because the Fabio and Naomi came out of Valletta. My son and I came out, four of us together, and Naomi was very close to my son because both Naomi and Fabio were teaching my son privately in the ballet. He had a classroom of his own, and he was getting educated by them privately in everything else, in Italian and the rest. So they had a very close relationship between him and both of them. We came out of the ballet, four of us together, and we said goodbye to them because they went to the car and we went to our car to go home, and it's the same direction. On the videos, which is in the hand of Italian police, Fabio is behind the driving seat. At the point of accident, which is the same road, it's the same direction, they couldn't even stop because the time is within the time frame. Naomi is behind the steering wheel. Fabio's body is about 20 meters away without any scratch on it. If you get thrown out of a car at a speed of 60, 70 kilometers an hour, you have to have a scratch on your face, on your body. Nothing. And how Naomi was on the seatbelt behind the steering wheel. We release a lot of information in a due course. But the strange thing is, Naomi and Fabio carry on for another 10 junction before they go out to the house. And they were murdered at the junction where I go out. Exactly at that junction.
You was in the same road, in the same way, the same time going.
Yes, we do. We came out together. We were one behind the other. It's all video recorded by the. It's part of the evidence in the court. The case is still in the court.
You went through this point because you was more in speed.
More or less, we drive a bulletproof cars and heavily loaded, but with a special type of, what do you call it, engine. So as I went past, they have missed getting me, they got them.
I remember one of public teaching, you also drove how it came to happen.
I wonder how much they were going to get paid.
If they can balance the books.
If we don't save here, so when we go to the solar system, how everything will be safe?
We shall see.
Is
It's
there
not the souls which do wrong, it's the physicality which does wrong.
a good friend in there too?
No, universe is full of good friends.
So why they don't help us now?
I always said it's a policy of you don't touch. A race has to complete itself.
But it is too much to bear.
It's what the human race have chosen.
Mr. Keshe, what is the situation with Giovanni now?
Why? He's okay.
But he understands everything that has happened. Does you understand it?
Well, we have discussed it in detail with each other. Nothing is hidden with Giovanni.
Because I thought that he was partly responsible for the Italian production going wrong.
He
Or am I
was.
wrong?
You're wrong. They tried to use him to do that, but he never got involved.
Good.
He's a
Happy to
very
hear that.
correct man. He's a very correct man. again, in that process, there have been a lot of worries at the moment in the court cases running.
Well, if there are any more in KF, I hope they get sorted out, please.
It was very strange. Just a few weeks, just a handful of weeks after the accident of Fabio, and Giovanni went through the same accident on the same stretch of road. Then he came out alive, but his car was gone.
I don't think you ever revealed that.
Pardon?
I don't think you ever revealed that.
No, but it's the same stretch of road. He lost his car.
I'm sorry to hear of that.
Moved the foundation, immediately replaced it, but it's just very, very accident. It was a Thursday morning. He was listening to a teaching coming to Valette. The strange thing is everything happens around Thursdays when they know where we are. That's why we don't disclose anymore where the teachings come from. They target us on teaching. As you know, we said it before. Again, on a Thursday teaching, I was supposed to be assassinated live on teaching. And the Italian police unraveled and arrested people. And again, they disappeared the next day. They were arrested in the hotels. And again, very recently, the last time we went public on a Thursday, we don't show where we are, how we do it. While I was teaching, they did the same thing. We opened the books with everything is settled.
Please, because I think it needs to come out.
the
Also infiltrations to the
No, the infiltrated, we were not infiltrated. We were lived with. They lived amongst us. They lived amongst many knowledge seekers close. It is part of this technology. We touch everything. And somewhere somebody gets touched. And now, one of the reasons we taught the soul teaching was to touch their soul. You can do everything with a physical life, but it cannot stop the process of the motion of the souls through understanding the work. In a very, very recent past, 2 of my close bodyguard protection officers have been assassinated. Same night. And this is for governments to understand how we are fully protected most of the time within range. But again, it was again sold information from his a young boy of 20, a 24-year-old. Again, by the same nation.
hope we achieve peace soon, Mr. Keshe. I really hope so.
We have to see it's the way life is, and people like us take a high risk to change things. It's not easy.
Are you playing soft with them?
Pardon?
Are you playing soft with them?
Soft?
Soft?
I
Soft.
don't need to play. We don't play games. We just keep on doing what we have to do. It's just you, as knowledge seekers, you do your part, we do our part, and there's a lot of things happening in the background needs to be done. And as I said in one of the videos you listened, which was recorded in Ballet, I've seen it last few days. It's been circulating. Believe the same as you do. The dimension of the physicality and dimension of the soul. But we control one over the other, or we try to live both lives. But everything is done against us has been good for us in a way of going forward. I heard recently that those who've been actively trying to assassinate, they said we've done everything, this guy is not normal. You got to understand, when your bomb goes under your car and you just jump over, how it feels. I've been there. When the higher chase with the gun, they throw the gun when you know they're going to catch them out of the window. I've been there. When they give you the poison and by mistake drink their own poison and get themselves poisoned, I've been there too. When they chase you to kill you on the motorway, I've been there too. When they try to hit you higher speed planes to hit you on flight to make an air accident, I've been there twice. Two times they tried to poison me. When it didn't work in Belgium, they tried it in Italy. Again by the Belgians.
With the white papers, yeah? I think you mentioned it once.
Yes, different ways. One with coffee, slowly, and then with the papers and then soup. I was handed the soup, sitting around the table, eating with knowledge, and I knew there's a poison there in my head. I said, I know there's a poison in it, but I will not be touched. And the guy watched me drinking it. They poisoned me they poisoned my son in the children teaching. That's why we stopped the children teaching. They poisoned his toys, which was used in the teaching. He came down and says, Papa, I'm going to see something is wrong inside me. There should be no man has the right to do this. Man, is the way it is. It's a human life.
You mentioned your child, Mr. Keshe. Did you get contact with him?
No. Don't know if he's alive or not. But that's in the hand of the courts. We stay quiet.
Wow, delivering technology and peace is a lot more involved than I realized.
This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry you had to share that and rehash all that, but I think it's good for the knowledge seekers to hear your depth of knowledge and experience.
We could see problems. Even taking us to Belgium was another setup. Now we realize we are aware of it. I was explaining this to knowledge seekers very recently. We have two people in the Keshe Foundation very close to me on the top. Nobody knows them. And they're the two people who will monitor the transition to hopefully to Universal Council and the Earth Council, the Keshe Foundation on Benadai. We've been trying to get the pattern written in 2004, 2005. And we paid a large sum of money to a patent company in Belgium to write a patent. They took €3,500 or equivalent of it to write the patent. After 6 months, they said this cannot be written. This pattern is not there. We don't have anybody expert in it. We said, can we have our money back? He said, no. We read your things, but we cannot write this. So we should know. We are the biggest patent company in Europe. We do what we like. We carried on. We started the initial test phase and doing things because we had everything to go. Then summertime like now, in August, one of these two was on holiday in Spain. He called me and said, I think I have found a company which will finance that we can start working there with the government support. Because at that time, we already been evaluated by UAB, University of Brussels, that is theoretically correct. We were already evaluated by the biggest space company in Belgium after 3-4 months of physical, what do you call, evaluation of the technology, circuits drawn, plans done. They call it the first gravitational energy flight system. And then we found out that the royal family are behind it, and I pulled out because they wanted again to charge 100,000 reactor for 1.8 million. I said, this is stealing from your nation. It's nothing to do with you. It's our nation. We do it, but you get your project done. I said, no, I'm walking away. So we are in our process when he said, okay, you come back from holiday to the guy, we go and see these people who they are. The company called in nanotechnology, the biggest in Europe now, they become the biggest murder company of the scientists. You can check it. You don't need to know not to miss it. They are in Leuven in Belgium. He called them. They said, you come in, we'll discuss. We went to their offices in this company. And strange enough, later on I gave lectures in this company to very large number of scientists. They claim they have discovered a nano, what do you call Coca-Cola bottles at that. Anyway, we went to this meeting. There were two guys sitting very normal and was a big fat guy. You know my size, double, triple my size. Me and the two guys sat on one side, they sat on the other side. It was a room about 3 meters wide, maybe 4 meters wide. If they had a table right across it, about maybe 10, 15 meters long. They said, explain the technology, and then we decide if we're going to finance it or not. And I spent 10 or 15 minutes explaining the principle behind it. The fat guy got up and started walking. He was walking, pasting. I said, excuse me, can you sit down? He said, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were discussing that somebody soon will discover the gravity, and you are here, you discovered it. We are financing it. I said, we tried with the patent company, the biggest patent company in Belgium, but they can't write a patent for it that we can detail it. He said, we have a patent writer if need be, but we want to see the knowledge behind it before we bring the patent writer in. And we organized to see these guys a few days later at our home. You have to understand, when you're a scientist unknown, you have to prove you're correct. So months before, to prove the technology is correct, I started gathering scientific papers. We came from England to Belgium, and in Belgium, with 2 suitcases, 3 suitcases, just documents. Because we used to drive from England to Belgium. We already had a house. It was our holiday home. You have to understand, we had 2, like a 10-seater dining room tables, and another one 6 table. You got to imagine about, like, some places 40, 50 centimeter high, on each topic, documents from different research papers confirming every step about the correctness of the black hole. Everything else was put on this table. These 3 people, they came in and they went through it, and they said, we have somebody to write this patent. We accept it, we pay for the patent to be written. And don't touch anything, he'll come next couple of days. He's got to go through it, he's got to understand it. Then if he says yes, he writes it. 2 or 3 days later, the patent writer turned up. Guess who? Dirk. That's where we met him the first time. And guess who was the fat guy? The fat guy is a bastard child of the King of Belgium. We saw the king was convicted and the girl in London became a prince. This guy is the second one. Is a copy of his father. And they paid him supposedly to write the patterns which you read, the patterns in your hand. And they wanted to know more and more details. And we submitted the first pattern. 2 weeks later, we submitted the second pattern. When we get to give the second pattern, 2 or 3 weeks later, you see the date of the patent, you can see them. And the way coming out of the patent registration office, I saw a pile of documents, and my patent was right on top. I said, what's this doing here? They said the military reads all the patents. If they see it applicable, they hold the knowledge for what they want to do. So they were already stealing technology. And then we submitted this to the Belgian patent, and then on time we submitted to the European patent in Den Haag. And the officers of the patent office in Den Haag wanted to see me. I went to this meeting and Dirk said, I have to come as well. I said, I'll go and see what they say. No, I have to come as well, because he had to report back to the Belgian authorities. He was truly, we saw at the end turning up in the court, he was from the beginning the spy for the Belgians, reporting the technology, but we never released much to him. Even he spent a lot of time around. And I went to the European patent, they said there's a committee wants to see him. There were 3 people in this committee. 2 Italian nuclear physicists, 1 British nuclear physicist. They gave me 20 minutes to discuss. In the first 20 minutes, they said, Mr. Keshe, you have discovered gravity without a doubt. But we want to know more. And this meeting went to a couple of hours. And they said, you have to rewrite the pattern that it can be claimed for industrial use, otherwise it's a natural discovery. The British nuclear physicist was adamant that this technology has to be hidden. This cannot come out the way it is. The 2 Italian nuclear physicists were supporting the case to go, and they had to report back to their whatever, which we ended up years later, we found out they reported to the Italian nuclear industry, because we came across them in Italy, in Rome, in nuclear center. And they told Dirk how you have to change things that this become a pattern. And then we wrote 370 cases, entries into it, which we paid for it. This time I paid all the national, what do you call it, registrations, and for what European and then national, international, which is the patents you have. And then European patent announced that they would not accept any more patents over 40 claims or something, and they put heavy numbers on it, because after 20 was free, 30, whatever it was. So we have 300 and so many claims on it for in a detailed way. And they try to find out how the key to these patents are. Then I went by the invitation of the Ayatollah Khamenei of Iran and Ahmadinejad to Iran. They found out that there is a discovery like this. We developed the Iranian space program. And what we saw, I explained to you when I came back from Tehran. And then they tried to understand what was inside this reactor. We never showed it. And I hid it a way that we had every night they're trying to break into the house somewhere to get access to this. But it was hidden somewhere, very safe. And on the 25th, we announced there is a magazine Electro something, which is a Dutch, very well known. They wrote a few articles about the new technology, and they said we organize a conference for you in Eindhoven with the Philips. And the Philips accepted this conference or this exhibition to go through because my father was one of their ex-directors. And as you know, we announced there were 700 seats. Seats were sold within the first couple of hours, no more seats available. And when we attended the conference, half of the seats were empty. American Embassy bought the seats to show it's a failure. And on the 26th, where we were supposed to show the first flying car in Eindhoven, on the 25th, again the Belgians turned up with the police and nuclear specialist, because my lab was in the house, and they said, you carry nuclear material, you're going to show something in Holland tomorrow. I said, yes. They said, where is your nuclear material? I showed them. Instead of confiscating it, they put it in the box, they locked it, they sealed it. I said, if I'm wrong, why are you sealing it? You can arrest me, and secondly, take the material. No, you will understand what we are doing to you. I said, this car is going to be shown tomorrow in Eindhoven that you can fly. He said, do you have a flying license? I said, no. He said, the car stays. I said, okay, no problem. We went to Holland. Knowledge seekers were new, we was going to show something. They were disappointed. The next week, on Saturday, we were giving on the 3rd of December another lecture in Belgium, near the city of Ghent, with a guy in his center with about 120, 30 people. It was jam-packed against everybody against the wall. We couldn't get any more people in. And this guy, you can read about him in Belgium. He went against vaccination and they took him to parliament. They said he's mentally blah, blah. They wanted to put him in mental institute. And we did a lot of research with him and his partner. She was a scientist, worked with us. And in that conference, I knew somebody is leaking information inside close to me. But we couldn't say how and how. We couldn't. Now we know who it is. It's gone for past 12 months. In the morning, Saturday morning, I said, I want 200 black bags. I said, why? I said, I want 200 black bags. I went to a wholesaler down the road. I bought 200 black bags. Put them in the car. And in the afternoon, we went to the conference to give the lecture. I gave the black bags to the guy at the reception. I said, anyone who comes in, you have to give him a black bag. He said, why? He said, anybody in the room, without the black bag, he is not allowed it. They gave black bags to everyone. Everybody sat down. There were literally, I think it was about 100 seats, but there were 130, 40 people in the room against the wall everywhere. And we have a gorgeous knowledge seekers in Belgium, very loyal, extremely loyal. I said to them, before anybody comes in, no one allowed in. We brought the Iranian nuclear reactor. Nobody has seen it before. Both of them now, you've seen them in the exhibition center. If you come to Linz, it's already put in the center in a flight position. And we kept everything in a suitcase. When people came in, I said to them, anything electronic you have, telephone, mobile phone, cameras, has to go into the black bag. Everybody was obliged to do. Dirk refused. I am not putting my camera, my telephone in my bag. I said, Dirk, in. He got up from next to me, went to the back where the entrance was, and he started shouting and shouting. I said, Dirk, phone in the bag, you're not going anywhere because you've never seen this. What we're going to explain. You've seen it coming from France, you've seen it with your Prime Minister's office, but nobody knows what it is. And he went out, they literally pushed him out because said, everybody's doing it, you have to do it. There was a deaf guy says, I have electronic earpiece. I said, everything in the bag. And put the bag in front of you. Then I said, you know, last Saturday, he came to embarrass us. Today, we show you the Iranian nuclear reactor and we'll bring you to shame. That's the 3rd of December, 2011. And we showed the nuclear reactor and this explained the technology. He came back in, he went outside, we could see him standing outside the auditorium, shouting and howling. He couldn't report to his bosses. And from that point, we had no more contact with Dirk for 2 or 3 years, for over 2 years, till more or less when I wanted to write the book number 4, and he started calling and making things that whatever happened, blah, blah. We knew this, one of the sources was there. And if you check, I said Iran will show the power of this technology to put you ashamed for what you did last weekend to us. And if you check, Iran, the next day on Sunday the 4th, captured the American drone to give a good, what I call hiding to the Americans and the Belgians for what they did in Eindhoven, which President Obama said, can we have our toy back? And in that conference, we showed to the Belgians and a number of people from outside, they came to that conference, the first time they could see the white reactors using. We have never opened these reactors in public till the knowledge seekers came to Italy, and one of the knowledge seekers, which is a Belgian spy who poisoned me with collaboration of the people close to us, they saw inside, but they still couldn't find out the trigger point because one of the knowledge seekers broke his reactor. And this is how we were betrayed from every direction. And after capture of American drone on the 4th of December 2011, we decided that the technology has to go public to governments. It's not going to stay with the Belgians and Americans trying to tighten down. And in early 2012, I have a number of friends as ambassadors, close friends, trusted friends. I explained to them, this is a technology we developed. They said our country needs it. So we put it on the key, we gave it to them and we announced it. And then the Americans in November, by the time the Russians and the Chinese had it, asked for this key that you have given to the other nations by the instruction of American president. On the 2nd day when Obama was elected, we received a call from the embassy. I said, I don't accept the call. In writing, I accept. I received a call at 3 o'clock European time. At 3:47, we received an email from the embassy that with the instruction of the President of the United States, the embassy requests the key which is offered to all the nations, and Americans that have been offered would like to have the key, which, because they knew this is how we captured the plane. And we met on the 17th of November 2012, where we gave the key to the Americans, and I told them, you know, it's going public, it's going to become an embarrassment. Said we all calculated everything, Mr. Keshe. And I put the key out. I said, you want the key of the Iran nuclear space technology? We want to talk peace. I said, it's impossible. Ahmadinejad says he's not going to do it. I said, Ahmadinejad doesn't speak on behalf of me and the Iranian leadership. We want to talk peace and technology and against peace. One hand the key, one hand the hand. They said, okay, we accept the key, and we start negotiating. And the negotiation is what you see 5+1 today. On the 4th of December, (2012), on a rendezvous which was organized for Hillary Clinton to meet with Ahmadinejad privately in Ahwaz airport. We shut the airport down. The private jet of Hillary Clinton landed. On the landing, there was a deliberate explosion inside, done by Hillary Clinton lover, Israeli defense minister. One American CIA close protection officer died. Hillary Clinton had a massive head injury. The private jet which brought Ahmadinejad to airport, we communicated to Americans they wanted her back in Dubai to fly her immediately to Washington. From Dubai to Washington, she was flown back with a massive head injury. I sent a message to the White House. This was not something which is in our hand. Your people have done your job. And here we offer the technology, what you saw for Naomi, to the American president, that if anything, the technology is available. I received okay from the Iranian leadership, offered the technology, we want to carry on with the peace. This is the next thing nobody had any control with. Then we found that the Israelis did it because they didn't want the peace talk to go ahead. And the White House responded, if we cannot do anything, if we need your technology, we fly you into Washington. Stand by. They managed, if you saw it, from 4th of December 2012, Hillary Clinton disappeared out of the radar of politicians. And then we saw her when she stood for becoming the first woman president of the United States. All the rigmarole, you remember they had to inject her, she had all the problem, came from that accident in Ahwaz airport. And I announced publicly that we are holding an American private jet on the Iranian territory, which was against all the sanctions. And immediately, head of Ahwaz airport announced, you can read it if you find it in press, that we are holding a foreign Boeing airline on the Ahwaz airport, and it's getting repaired by the Boeing specialist. And the thing was that no Boeing officer could come to Iran because he was Iran under such a boycott. Again, we get the permission for them to take a private, what we call presidential jet out of Iran. That's how they broke sanctions, when it came to their own private jet. And this is how we managed to get the 5+1. Step by step, we guided it through. And if you go into the archives, the week before the Senate ratified the 5+1, on the Monday of that week, the head of opposition committee, which was set up by the Jewish lobby in the Senate, that they knew they're not going to get it through, resigned. The reason for resign was very simple. On the Monday before, I received the instructions from White House. They said, Mehrad, this is not going to go through. The opposition, the Jewish lobby will kill it in the Senate. We can't get you the 5+1 peace talks to be ratified. I said, give me time. I need time to change, to find a solution. I called Mike Harris, which a lot of you know, the broadcaster, and he was very close to Keshe Foundation. And he works in the background with Veteran Magazine. I said, Mike, on your Thursday show, I want to be in. I have an announcement from the Iranian leadership for the American Senate. And you can find the interview with Mike Harris. In that interview, Senate members were waiting to see what's the response from Iran. I said, more or less in a way, we want to know which senator can refuse 5 or 10 million jobs, which this contract will bring for the American nation. You are having high unemployment. I want to know which senator will vote against such a ratification that brings so many millions of jobs in this time of recession. Immediately, number of the senators realized what's going, they changed their mind, and on Monday, the opposition resigned and we got it through the Senate. Get hold of Mike Harris is the last chat I gave you. And then you understand how Keshe Foundation has been influential in the policies. Now you know a little bit history of the Keshe Foundation.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe, for sharing that with us. Thank you.
And one day these will be written and you will understand what I have personally gone through. The loss of my child, to the Belgium the same way, to loss of factory in Africa and Italy through the same way, same person. The bombs, the poisoning by the same people. And he hasn't stopped. But the good thing at the end of it is I have found peace, I have found happiness in a very different way and in a very special way. And at least for the time being, there is peace. And all of you, in past 12 months, I know 99% of you have seen the mayhem in past 12 months on the internet. You lot, with all what you've seen, you haven't been through one day of my life with the people who wrote this out. Turmoil continues. Now the world is getting into turmoil and I have found peace. You lot are getting what I got for 30 years. That's one day we explain more. This is part of the history of the foundation that you might have to know.
Thank you for your courage and strength. I think any mere mortal would have packed it in by now.
But the important thing is now when we're sitting back, they knew every time something is going to happen, make sure they're not in it. And if they were in it pretending that they got involved in it, pretense. It's the way they work. We call it Northern Ireland policy. During the 300-year wars of Northern Ireland, in the last part of it in 1980s, 90s, it was very systematical. When the Protestants were bombing a part of the Londonderry or Belfast, somehow they had a coded message. They tell all the Catholics not to go to St. Today is going to be a bomb, and they knew which. There was some sort of a structural coded message. If the Protestants were sending a bomb out to kill them, they tell their people, somebody's phone is open. And you suddenly could see a part of the city empties, or you could see less people. They knew there's a bomb coming up. So over time, they learned this. In 1990s, as part of my business life, we had a operation in heart of Belfast. Because there, if you got bombed, government paid, you could never lose money. And I was walking in our offices and I saw the area manager of the Northern Ireland in the office. I said to him, what are you doing? He said, everything is good. And I said, how is the figures? He said, figures are good, but we dropped sale in the Belfast past 2 or 3 days. I said, boy, you're going to get bombed. He said, what? I said, you're going to get bombed. They have informed them it's going to be a very big bomb. If it's 2 days, you have a notice. I went to our warehouse people. I said, whatever we can't sell for past 10 years in the warehouses, on the trucks to Belfast now. Because we're going to get paid. The government will pay us. If the stock is booked, it's on the floor. While our trucks were going to Northern Ireland, we got bombed. Everything was blown to pieces. We didn't lose money. Government insurance pays. So they were informing people beforehand not to be. And strange enough, every attempt in my life, they were informed not to be. And then you see the pattern. They're always informed beforehand not to be. And they never turned up in the shops. The shopping centers empty. They know, and they knew. But you got to realize that when we were testing with the space company in Belgium, a number of times I was given private access, security clearance to go to the Belgium nuclear center. And Belgians have two structure, now three structure of nuclear. One is the Flemish side, one is the national nuclear. And now the Germans have opened a third door in it. That's how they became 5+1. Germans have become involved in nuclear industry. And the strangest thing is the lawyer of the space company, the lawyer of the Flemish nuclear, the lawyer of institute with monitors industrial loan to inventors is the same guy, who then become part of the board of directors of European Space Agency. And he is a lover of the king. And this is how they track things down. Is the male part of a partnership. And this is why we've been crucified and chased by this guy. And Dirk worked for him. And he is a lawyer of the same company, of the nano company. That's how they could fake everything in the court. We have documents in the Keshe Foundation. There's a summons issued when we left Belgium overnight to Italy that it says a terrorist in red on a court summons issuing a warrant for my arrest as a terrorist. Americans refused to accept it because CIA called me and says, Mr. Keshe, the Belgians have come here with a terrorist warrant. We are not accepting it because they cannot deliver anything to confirm with your scientists. Then, a week later, the Belgium took the title of terrorist of the summons and they changed it to fraud and what we saw. But they didn't realize one thing. The court case number for terrorism and fraud is the same court case number. This is against international law. They had to open another case. So they couldn't get the terrorism. They went for the fraud, and what we saw, and some of you who are here, you went to court. You know exactly what happened in that court. And again, strange enough, we reveal something to you very soon that is going to shock the whole of the Keshe Foundation about this. And now you know a little bit more. There was never a fraud case because we have a certificate and a license to do what we do. And it was on the wall of the Keshe Foundation in Nino. We have authorization. The company who authorized us, Naturopathica, paid huge amount of money to insure us, to bring us under the policy. They knew it's a fake. They didn't let anyone put this in the court. When the head of nation is gay, the others play the game. Who are the players with the gay guy? And they get their way. And you don't need to trust my word. There's a book published, and they managed to get it through the court in Belgium that explain exactly his behavior. Now you know a little bit more.
I hope we can hear about the Iranian spaceship over the Dome of the Rock at some point soon. Probably the most beautiful thing that I've seen on the internet. Thank you, Paul.
We did, Jason. Mr. Keshe has explained it. Maybe he would go more into it, but he has.
Yes, I know he
The-
has. Well, thank you.
On the 6th of June, we are negotiating with governments to join us to do. And I advise you not to miss the opening of the Keshe Foundation in it on the first weekend of October. We will show more or less, for the first time you see 2, maybe 4 machines, which are part of the new space system that will be used in the launch of the program in 6th June next year. In the next couple of weeks, Keshe Foundation will release videos of the new exhibition for people who want to come in. This time, we own the place. They don't need to call no one to block it. And this time, we already have all leaders and richest people in the world previewing it a week, 2 weeks before we open the public. You will see technologies which is to you, you don't see, but in built in one of the most advanced space technologies known to man. But as usual, Keshe Foundation way, the simplest way.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe, for opening all you have open today, even though it's only a small corner of what you've experienced to deliver this knowledge and technology and peace. It's unbelievable. And as you said, you've only shared a small bit of it. Congratulate you and honor your work. We hope we can replicate.
New technologies will be released to governments initially, and then we'll see the same way we work, because this stage of the technology will change the defense. Whichever nation will have access to the new technology will definitely become a superior power. And this cannot be. But at the same time, a number of nations are operating underneath the same. We monitor people who work with us very closely. And now there's a structure. Anybody around Keshe Foundation, especially close to us on a daily contact with us, are monitored daily through every aspect. Not by us, but by national securities, and they work behind by the Keshe Foundation securities. We don't let no one close anymore. And this is a shame, because it could have been done much better, teach much easier. But this is the conditions that's been created. Anyway, thank you very much.
We're the ones that are thanking you. Alex, is there anything else you'd like to bring in? This was a phenomenal delivery by Mr. Keshe, as always.
No, Mark, that's hard to top. Just you know that change is coming. Thank you so much, everybody.
Okay, I'm going to thank you so much, Mr. Keshe, for joining us, and we will share the knowledge you have passed on to us and the various platforms. And it's just amazing that we're here with you and experiencing just a taste of what you've gone through for, you said, 30 years or more. It's just unbelievable that someone who would want to bring advanced technology, peace, space travel, and all the goodies would be treated so shabby year after year, and continues to press on. It gives us a guiding light to follow and to emulate as we go on our journeys. Okay. Thank you all for joining us. This has been the North American Keshe Corona Telegram meeting in English for August 22nd, 2021. I will play the message to humanity for Mr. Keshe and the final disclaimer, and then we'll end the meeting. Is anyone want to add anything else at this point? I know we've been here quite a long time, but we can accommodate you. If there's something you'd like to say or mention, we have all the time in the world. Very well.
Is Mehran Keshe familiar with George Ivanovich Gurdjieff?
Never heard of.
No? The first time I heard of you was
Don't think so.
Carrie Cassidy interview, your first interview with Carrie Cassidy. And you described spaceship. And I immediately thought of George Ivanovich Gurdjieff and his description of the trans spaceship Karnak. And I've been listening to you ever since.
That's where I came in through too, Carrie Cassidy, in his second interview, I think, with Mr. Keshe.
Do you know why we stopped with Carrie Cassidy?
I have no idea.
I rolled my eyes when you did. I It took me a while to listen to the interview. And once I did, I was, here I am.
She likes to promote the idea that there must be war in space and that these beings
Yes,
must want to eat us. And
I only brought up Carrie Cassidy to bring in a timeline.
Yeah, the reason we used to do a lot with Kerry Cassidy on the interview, and the last interview we did with Kerry Cassidy was more or less due to one factor. The factor was that about the same time, August, about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, you know the time, I saw I saw a picture of Alan Sterling, like with his wife torn in the middle. I said to Alan Sterling, because he used to do interviews with us, if you go through Wikipedia, we didn't know at that time why and how. And he said, yes, I've divorced my wife. I said, her fault or your fault? Something in that. He said, you know, I have a problem. I said, what's the problem? I can't, it's something to do with me. I can't keep my hands off chair. I said, what? I said, boy, you're finished. No more interview, nothing. I'm going to get you. He said, but you know, we all have weaknesses, blah, blah. I said, forget about Wikipedia. I'm going to find out exactly why you divorced your wife. We asked the security people around Keshe Foundation to dig in. And we collected about 10,000 pages on Alan Sterling. And if you go back a few weeks ago, Rick tells you that we mentioned his name at that time, and they brought our live stream down that he's made accusation, blah, 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 blah. And I went to CIA. I said to CIA, we have enough evidence to get Alan Sterling as a pedophile. I was told to go to the Italian embassy in Rome, hand the documents to FBI and CIA in Rome embassy, and they look after it. In September, October, all this took place, and in November, I handed over the documents. I informed the CIA and meeting in Rome embassy, because we have access, even as Iranian nuclear physicist, I'm allowed to any embassy. You're not allowed to go in, it's against the law. And nothing happened. A month or two later, about November-ish, December-ish, I received a call with the same area code as Sterling. I thought the God knows wants to get in touch with me, but something told me to answer the phone. Whatever you're going to tell him, you tell him. I answered the phone, and the guy said, I'm the head of FBI, pedophile case, what do you call it, division, and we have brought all our support team into this area. We've been after Alan Sterling for a long time. Do you have anything to give us? I said, no problem. I have 10,000 pages. Give me the email. In 1 second, we transferred the documents to them. I thought the embassy was just to talk what they had to report. It took a month or two to get to them. And round about January, I called the number. Like I said, we are working on it. All the pedophile specialists in United States, FBI, are here. We're working on this case. But we can't tell you anymore because the information you gave us is so complete. You're working around your file. I called a few weeks later and I said to the officer, what is going on? He said, we have everything to capture him, but if we capture him, it's going to take months and years in courts to get this guy. But if he walks to the office, to the police, and he confesses we got him, it's just prisoning him. And he said, this guy is part of the huge ring. We've been after all of them. I said, no problem. Let me see what I can do. What I did with Mike Harris, I went to Kerry Cassidy. I said, Kerry, I need time for an interview. And in that interview, I want 2 minutes to speak about Alan. Alan and Kerry were very close because they did a lot of work in the background together. Kerry is loyal to, what do you call it? To Sterling. He said, you can't go very far. I stop you. I said, just give me 2 minutes. And you can pick up the Kerry Cassidy interviews. If she hasn't taken it up, you can listen to the last talk. In that interview, I said, oh, by the way, Kerry, something in that line. We know the victims of Sterling, he's a pedophile, and are his 2 children. He has abused his children. He knew, we announced in advance, I'm going to talk to Kerry. He was listening to all of it. He heard that we knew through our file that he's raped his 2 daughters. But nobody could prove it. He is split from his wife on the condition that he'll never see the children and he cannot rape them again. And when I went public, the wife went out. Public knows I'm going. We went out on the 19th. On 20th night, 21st, he walked into the police station. He handed himself to FBI and we got him. And it didn't take long, just 4 or 5 months. He got a life prison, solitary, thanks to Keshe Foundation, thanks to the knowledge seekers in the background and Keshe Foundation security, we got the guy. From this case up to now, over 7,000 pedophiles have been arrested. He is giving a lot of information. The group which one guy died in New York very recently is part of that file. The Interpol has a big connection with these people. So what they have done, they have created a military police which no one can stop, and in any country they can pick up. If you go back on the list of Dirk and the other people, you see suddenly a lot of people disappeared on a regular meetings of Keshe, and they were all pedophiles. And what the program was, Dirk always pushed to be the webmaster of the Keshe Foundation. I said, you know nothing. I do everything that. We found out the reason he wanted to be webmaster, they were picking up people's IP. What Sterling was doing in his wiki job was interviewing people like me, Free Energy, youngsters being interested about UFOs or whatever. They were picking up their IPs and they had a group in the background checking the children and taking the children. Wiki was used for picking up children. And now we have a connection that the recent changes in the Keshe Foundation had a connection to this group. And they keep on telling us why you keep on speaking about the pedophiles. Because we put the Sterling away. The Dirk was one of the big players in the, because he brought Sterling into the Keshe Foundation, giving interviews. He wasn't in the foundation, but just giving interviews to this guy because they knew. And that's the last time we gave an interview to Kerry Cassidy, because she said you caused Sterling to go into prison, but she never saw the light that thousands of children have been saved.
I didn't want to bring up Carrie Cassidy as a point of conversation.
Yeah,
Just to bring
Kerry
up the
runs a
timeline.
beautiful program. She's a very good host.
I
Allows.
have not paid attention to her since you came on my radar, Mayron.
Kerry, she's a gorgeous woman, and her partner, they work very hard. A lot of respect for them.
Good.
But I think part of it comes from the hurt that a lot of people believed Sterling. And a lot of people who worked around him wanted to, if their work has ever caused harm to anyone. There's 120,000 people on this list, apparently. Sterling gave a security code that the FBI could get in and pick up the list. They have a hidden, the structure of the, if you go to PeaceWiki and had a code, you could see the latest children who are online. This is how they worked.
Yes, if I had a child, I wouldn't even say so.
We know the facts from FBI.
I am being mandated by my employer to receive a vaccine in hypothesis.
I cannot give you advice on that one.
I know.
But I would not take a vaccine.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Gordon Duff is he's the other end of the stick.
What do you mean?
Mr. Gordon Duff says vaccines are the way to go. And
Gordon is a good friend.
that's what he said to me about you, Mr. Keshe.
He's a good friend, well respected.
Yes.
And him and his wife have with us and worked with us for a long time. He's highly respected, and he never writes things. He sensationalizes things, to make it as a news thing. But he's more or less 100% correct in everything he does in those kind of things, but he hides it because he likes the sensation, make it interesting.
Okay, so in a personal email, no, I guess, no, we shouldn't discuss this. I'm surprised that you haven't heard of George Ivanovich Gurdjieff or his book, Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson.
I have read 1 or 2 books in my life.
Okay.
And one of them was Shame, and the other one I had to do it because my teacher wanted me to read a book.
Yes.
I read a book about Richardson, the first man in what you call Area 51, who his life was interesting for us to read because he writes how he became a rich man without knowing it, because at that time, whatever pattern was submitted by Area 51, he had to sign for it, and whoever signed to have the pattern received royalty from it. And he explains to you how they used to put tanks of nuclear material on the corridors because they didn't know it could be so dangerous and everything else. And one book about Freddie Mercury, because I wanted to read to understand the mindset.
Okay.
And that's the only 2 books I've ever read on this.
Well, Tell us about Freddie Mercury.
Shameful man. What we know about him now. But that's the way they live their lives. This is a Russian. He was brought up in the house of Russian, and when he became gay, and when he found out that he's got AIDS, he went infecting 2,500 people deliberately to take revenge before he dies.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, to read about his life in Munich, which is the center of the gay society for a long time in Europe.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, it is part of life.
So it seems.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, brother.
Jason. Thank you, Mr. Keshe. It's going on 2 o'clock in Europe right now. You're having some very late nights, Mr. Keshe.
Yeah, I've got a 9 o'clock work in the office.
Appreciate you joining us so much and sharing with everybody. Hopefully this interview goes out across the planet and adding to more knowledge.
You see,
Phenomenal.
this is the history of the Keshe Foundation.
Yes. Yeah.
It cannot be denied this happened, and some of us had to go through it, and some of us had to live the life of it.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to play your message to humanity, which will be about 6 minutes, and then we'll play the final disclaimer and we will end the meeting. I think this is the longest we've ever gone here on Sunday afternoon. But once we're in the Keshe Foundation and the Keshe Foundation is becoming very well known, I think we'll all be working around the clock, more or less, depending on how you choose to do it, as we keep expanding the knowledge and it's reaching more and more circles across the planet. So thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day or evening. Thank you.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GANs processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.